I recognize the Honourable Leader of the Official Opposition.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, Nova Scotians are still finding out about the full impact of this government's cruel cuts to them and their families. Every day we see new letters from organizations who will be forced to close their doors or reduce services, and media posts from people who are worried and alarmed. Thousands of Nova Scotians line the street outside this building to make their message clear that they rely on these services, and to cut them is cruel. And they deserve answers for why the government chose to cut specific programs and what those cuts will mean. Will the Premier finally give Nova Scotians some answers, Madam Speaker?
I recognize the Honourable Premier.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Look, we know that families are dealing with challenging times. So is the government. $1.2 billion deficit last year, $1.2 billion deficit this year. It's not sustainable in the long term. We've had to make some decisions, but we'll continue to look for ways to support Nova Scotians. This budget has almost $19 billion in spending, Madam Speaker. That's all going to support Nova Scotians. We'll continue to look for ways to do more. We'll work with communities. But the reality is, until we can grow our revenues, grow our economy, get things going, which we're working hard to do, Madam Speaker, it's just a difficult time. But we have said we will not raise taxes, and I know the member opposite is keen for tax raises, but we're not going there, Madam Speaker.
I recognize the Honourable Leader of the Official Opposition.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. While the Premier relies on his talking points and compares his own pain to those of families who are losing vital cuts, we continue to try to get answers for those families. Yesterday, I was joined by Carrie and James Robertson, who are worried about cuts to the caregiver benefit. The $400 grant helps cover the family's bills and their son's medical expenses and keeps him at home with them where he wants to be. The government is cutting $2.5 million from this program that keeps people out of hospitals and long-term care, but when pressed, the minister responsible admitted that she didn't know what these cuts would mean for the Robertsons, or when they would roll out, or how they would find out. Madam Speaker, can the Premier be confident in the cuts he's making when his own ministers can't explain them?
I recognize the Honourable Premier.
Madam Speaker, I'm confident that as a government we do what we can when we can. Over the last few years we've seen significant spending. Many of it is additional appropriations that the opposition complain about, but that is spending that goes to support families. When we can do more, we do more. But when times are tough, it's a difficult time for everyone. That program still has $10 million. We'll work with families, we'll work with organizations on making sure we get that to the right places. But at the same time, that pot of money has had a lot come out of it. A lot of the pressure has been relieved because we've opened 1,000 long-term care beds. We'll open another. So we know that the pot is changing, Madam Speaker, but we'll work with families on that.
I recognize the Honourable Leader for the Official Opposition.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Whether the Premier wants to admit it or not, cuts to programs that support people with disabilities, cuts to seniors programs, cuts to mental health and social work programs are cuts to frontline health care. And they're happening at a time that this government has no health authority board and no health authority CEO. 5 years in, and Nova Scotians don't have the results they were promised. How can the Premier expect Nova Scotians to keep trusting him when leadership and accountability are so obviously lacking?
I recognize the Honourable Premier.
Madam Speaker, I completely reject the premise of the member's statements. Healthcare is improving dramatically under this government, Madam Speaker. We are, in fact, the envy of the country in many categories. We know there is work to be done, but imagine, Madam Speaker, that we've got the unattached down to 7%, Madam Speaker. In most other provinces...
Order. I'm sorry, can you pause the clock? There are to be no pictures taken from the gallery. I ask that you delete those pictures and not do it again. Thank you so much. I recognize the Honourable Premier.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. 7% unattached. Most provinces and territories are more in the 20%. There's incredible progress. The health minister has been up in estimates for, I think, 20 hours. There's plenty of time to ask questions, Madam Speaker, if they wanted to ask substantive questions. But the reality is healthcare spending is up, results are up, but taxes are not going up under this government like they would under that.
Order.